So that was time limited. That was one of the deals. There was an end date for the purchase of that property. As far as the Parks Commission, I do believe that the development, the design of that will go through the Parks Commission. So it's not that their input isn't going to get there. There is a difference between how you're going to develop the site versus whether you're going to buy it in the first place. Now, the city of Olympia has a lot of property that we're just sitting on, that we haven't done anything with. And that, for example, we've got a gravel lot in downtown. I don't see how that's benefiting anything, especially downtown, when you consider the area of blight or the issue of blight. We're not contributing, and we're taking something off the tax roll, and to the best of my knowledge, for no purpose whatsoever. That's something that I'm calling for, that we do an inventory assessment of what we have and see what aren't we using. Where is the city itself hindering potentially downtown or other areas with this particular property? There is potentially some plan that is going to have to go through the Parks Commission. Rob will get his input, but the question is whether we're going to acquire the property or not. We haven't locked into any kind of design whatsoever. If we can come into an agreement, great, then we can be partners. If we can't, they're going to buy the $300,000 property back from us, which is a huge boon. I don't know of any other property where you get a 100% guarantee back. So this was an exceptional circumstance. And it was, you know, originally I wasn't planning to vote in favor of that, because I was thinking $300,000, you've got to be kidding me in this time, unless we can change our policy in how we deal with property overall. And I started thinking that through. You've got people in the county like Stop. They want their property rights, and they're saying, if you want to take away our value, fine, buy it from us. And having worked in the environmental field, I can see how people definitely feel that way. And they'll tell you, put your money where your mouth is. So if there are some areas where we don't want developed, and certainly not very intensively, like this area, which is connecting two different park areas, which is low-lying, which has a lot of stormwater potential, and we're going to need it, as opposed to becoming a flooding issue. That's one property we really don't want developed intensively. In which case, it's like we can either just write it off regulatorily and have someone extremely angry with us saying, why are you making me pay the cost for the community? Or we could take it off our hands. What property do we want to buy as a public investment? And then what properties don't we need that should go back into private hands? So it's getting back to this overarching view of what do we own and what's government's role. I would rather us take property that we don't want developed than hold on to property that we do and then do nothing with it ourselves.
That's true, Karen, but you know, the way they set up that contract, if they're not pleased with the development ideas that comes out of the city, they get to buy it back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like the idea that you're saying, okay, let's buy it up, it's good for stormwater, it's good for keeping it out of development. However, the group that brought it to you and said, here, this is our contract, they want to see development on it. They want to see an amphitheater, they want to see a big parking lot, they want to see an education center. They're not talking about leaving it for stormwater. And if you decide what you want to do is basically leave this as natural, they're going to buy it back. And I agree with Steve. They've got a 1-year interest-free loan. So
a couple of
30 months.
30 months.
And where does the, you know, what's the status of the agreement between the city and CBG on the lease agreement? Is that something that, you know,
The city would own the property, and
well, the city owns the property. I assume, has the city actually purchased it?
yes.
Okay. And what's the status of the negotiations of the lease between the city as the lessor and CBG as the lessee? You know, that's what the memorandum of understanding, you know, anticipates, is that there will be a lease agreement between the city and CBG that will come to fruition no later than 30 months from the date of the closing. So what's the status of that? Is it still being negotiated? Is it still in discussion? what's the timeline realistically?
And these are good questions, and it hasn't come back to the council yet as far as the full lease agreement. But
when it comes back to the council, is it something that we'll have a public hearing on?
One of the things to think about, and this point was brought up, that the isthmus has gotten a lot of attention, and there could be a purchase on the isthmus that would take a partnership. So when you're setting a precedent, and this is precedent setting, any argument that you use for or against the CBG, those same arguments are going to apply for the isthmus. And
no, it's a different piece of property in a different location, and it's not something that's going to be done, on a when you send the agenda out on a Friday or Saturday, and then vote on it Tuesday night to enter into an agreement that says we'll reach an agreement.
Actually, it had been on the city's calendar in June, and then it got pushed back to July again. So it's actually been in front of the city council twice, and there were in 2 different months. So there had been an entire month for public comment that you could have sent in comments, you could have sent in emails, because one of the problems why it was postponed for a month was because the memorandum of understanding was not flushed out properly.
Okay, without the memorandum of understanding, what am I commenting on?
Now this is a great topic, but I'm going to move on for some other things, okay?
Can I give you just a little bit of an update there? I'm on the Park and Rec Advisory Committee that got shut out of that. And we're really not going to be involved in it too much as it turns out, but we will. Tomorrow evening, I think it's 6:30 at the Ole Center, there's the last public meeting for input on that particular development on the Harrison parcel. And the park, you can be happy, your park department is now dealing with the design. And any of you that have spent any time on Percival or in the Harbor House there can kind of get an idea of what happens when your park department does a public process, a pretty good one, and the outcomes that you get. And I'm gaining more and more happiness or whatever. I'm more secure of what they're doing. And with that particular parcel on Harrison, I know that the design that's going to come out, that's going to be presented tomorrow night, will not appear very much like the design that we saw initially. The park department has worked hard with that group to help them understand that they're not going to get what they want. But it's up to us as a community to make sure that the community stands up at the appropriate time, and tomorrow night's one of those times, to make sure that the community gets what we really want there. I would urge you to show up and at least look at what has come together. And if CBG decides that they don't like the thing and want to buy it back, my point of view on that is fine, let them buy it back and let them try to do what they want to do, going through the zoning and the planning process that the city has set up. It's right now zoned residential, and to do what they want to do, the zoning's going to have to change. And most of you that have been around here know how hard it is to get zoning changed if the community's awake. But as a member of the PRAC, I'm still not happy with the way it happened. If they would have had a full public process, if the CBG would have had a full public process in their plans, it would have come to the city a lot
So
different.
the PRAC is angry that we bought land without consulting them first, or?
We were presented a plan, a drawn out, fully drawn out plan for the property, basically given to us without asking us for any input on what we thought about whether or not that property should be even purchased or used as park. There is a city-owned land right next to it that affords trail connection without the piece of 24-acre parcel that the city just purchased. I will not argue that that's not an important piece of property for the city to own. It's about 10 to 15% wetland and about 85 to 90% wetland buffer. So there's not much the builder could do there anyway in residential without digging a really big rainwater basin, which I think in this community we should seriously consider eliminating as part of the construction process in this town. There are ways to build without having that much runoff of the property. the 300,000 is, I thought was a pretty good price. It's not worth the 1.4 that you talked about, but that's another discussion. But at the point we are now, mostly it's up to the community to stand up and speak their mind. And if the CBG is not happy, let them come up with $300,000. The reason they came to the city is they couldn't raise $300,000. And as far as comparing it to the isthmus, I don't think you can do that, because the people that are working on the isthmus project are not coming to the city with a plan in hand saying this is what you have to do. They're working on securing the land and making it available for the city to start their public process to decide what's going to happen there, and that's totally different than what the WOBA and the CBG have done.
Well, actually, it's not as different as you think, but.
Well, the procedure and the process will look quite a bit alike, but the intentions, the way it's presented, the way it's done will look a lot different, I'm sure.
Karen, I think he brings up a good point too about the builders coming to the city asking for help. You know, I really think, I would like to know what the council's philosophy is on that, because I think growth should pay for growth.
Well, these weren't builders per se, this was a community effort.
Right.
So it was a whole bunch of people, it wasn't just that.
It was not a community effort, don't let it fool you.
So, now I've seen some of the names on that one. Vera Black, she's part of the community. You have Bob Jones, he's a neighborhood association president. They were affected by that. So, you know,
were you ever one of the meetings?
Here's one of the concerns that I have, Rob, is just because a group has some developers in it doesn't make it a development.
No, I'm not going there. All I'm asking is, were you ever one of their meetings, the CBG's meetings?
No, I met with them though. They met with all of us.
I know, but were you ever one of their public meetings?
No.
Were you ever involved in their public input process? Because they didn't have meetings, they didn't have a public process. They were asked when their meetings were and could we attend, and the person we asked was their lawyer, who couldn't think of a time they'd had a meeting or if it was possible for someone else to attend.
But philosophically is my question, that do you think if a developer wants to develop an area, that any city money should go into that? Because, you know, I think growth should support growth. If they want it, if the utilities run to the edge of where they're going to build, they need to pay for all of that. The utilities shouldn't have to be going into there and laying all that out. That should not be something they have to do. That the builder should be paying for that and hooking into the utilities as it exists. Otherwise, the taxpayers continually paying for the expansion of all those things and the rates that they pay and all kinds of other things. So, you know, I don't know many builders. This is a tough time for builders, I'll give them that. But, you know, builders aren't noted for being bankrupt a lot. And they do make a lot of money on things. I'm not sure that the city should be in the business of subsidizing them. So, philosophically, when would the city be willing to help, other than like in a public park or a public facility? Because just helping with housing developments. And
Well,
that
no,
sort of
so
thing.
this isn't a housing development, this is,
Right, I'm just
this
saying
will be a public
philosophically.
park. For that one, and I think that's a great question. Myself, I tend to be somewhat conservative on that. We have impact fees. No, they're not gonna recover all of the costs. I mean, Bob Jacobs is here, he can talk about that, I'm sure, at length. But one of the things new development also does is that they pay higher taxes. You've got older development that needs a lot of retrofit. Retrofit is extremely expensive, so the new growth is actually in part paying for the old growth. It goes hand in hand. And how you're gonna balance that out, perfectly evenly, I don't know. I don't know if the new growth ends up paying more. So that's the balancing act. But getting to your point, as far as should we help out with developers? My personal take, time is money. I've done environmental regulation, and you start sending tax dollars to any kind of private person, it doesn't matter who they are or what they do, then there's always going to be some pushback for that, and you're going to have to question the appropriateness of it. But if you can, for example, get your zoning get your land use straight to the point where you could say, you know, we're not gonna have to come back and change it in a spot rezone. We've gone through the process, the community is comfortable, a developer can come in and say, okay, they can look at our design, say, this is what they're saying that is okay for us to build. Here are the parameters, we're gonna go forth, and we're not gonna get pushback for it. We're not gonna get roadblocked. In that case, there's a lot of predictability. When you're a developer, you need that kind of predictability. If you have someone challenging you on every step of the way, that means more consultant fees, that means more time. And Olympia downtown has a horrible reputation, unfortunately, for being very developer unfriendly. On one hand, you know, there's talk about, can we ever revitalize downtown? On the other hand, there's don't give an inch on the environmental side, make things as tough as possible. So these are the two sides that I'm hearing. I don't necessarily want to give tax dollars away. I'm not a big fan of that. But everyone deserves a fair shake. And if we have something in a plan, we should be able to stick to it. So that's kind of unfortunately, that's what Swan is dealing with right now. With the southeast corner of Division and Harrison, it's in the plan. And that's one of the things, how far ahead do we get where we're reviewing our plans and making sure that they're acceptable to the people around it. And that is our responsibility. But in some ways, you know, it's like changing the rules on someone midstream. So I guess that would be my answer. Be light on the tax dollars, but be very professional as far as the predictability.
One of the problems you have with your comprehensive plan, it really has no teeth in this community. It's not controlled, supported, or covered by the building codes and the zoning. There's no relationship there. And when you have, it was described to me the other night, as the Tacoma's building codes are like 2 volumes that are this thick, and Olympia's look about like that. And if you only have that many codes, then your planning department is free to just kind of do whatever they want to do unless somebody stands up and litigates. And that's not a position a community wants to be in. You make a plan and you say, okay, this is a plan, it's a great plan, let's stick to it. And the next thing that happens is something that doesn't follow the plan. Because someone over here in that office has said, well, I think we can work this out, let's see what we can do. In the public hearing, yada, yada. And now you've got giving variances without the council's vote. It happens in this town.
One thing you mentioned, Karen, that I'd like it if you could expand on a little bit more. You said that you'd like to see an inventory of the properties the city owns. If such a thing was made, would that be made public? Maybe you can put on your website?
Well, I already asked for it. I received a near complete list yesterday. So we have that. The full council has that. I talked with Steve Hall. It doesn't include all of our properties, but it includes most of them. And he's also highlighted which properties he thinks can be surplused. But it's, but yeah, why are we hanging on to properties that we don't need? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I'd like to get a hold of that. How does one find
Well,
it?
I can email it to you.
That'd be wonderful.
Zena, you'd be interested to know at the PRAC meeting last Thursday, we are moving to do the same thing, taking inventory of all property within the city that the city owns, but not only just lots and building space, but street ends. I mean, there are some interesting little parcels that are between houses that have no street connection that the city owns for one reason or another. And we're looking, the PRAC is looking at making those small pieces that are not buildable available to the community to do what do we call them now? Third places and neighborhood nooks and pocket parks and parklets. But we're starting the process of looking at that to make those. If there's a street in and there's a community there that can make use of it.
The one that comes to mind for me is there used to be a little school on a piece of property on Boulevard just before you get as far as the I-5 overpass, and it's just now, it's a big empty field that people run their dogs on.
Oh, it's a large field.
Yes.
On the north side of it, on the north side of it, there's a childcare.
Yeah.
That's the school district owns that property,
Oh, so,
and
Their capital budget has a new building on
but their capital budget doesn't have the money to build the building.
it doesn't
does it?
exist.
it. You'll be voting on a bond issue soon.
Because we've looked at that, and the park department has looked at that as a possibility of a place to put ball fields, because of the size of the property, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, we got a building plan. Anyhow, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You may be surprised, but I have a concern.
I can't believe it.
I have a concern about our failure to properly maintain existing facilities. For example, buildings, streets, parks.
You wonder why I'm trying to get rid of stuff, Bob? Because I know we can't.
Well, that's a different topic and has very little to do with this. We set up a fund for major maintenance on buildings some 15 or so years ago. And somehow it has consistently been underfunded in recent years. I don't know if staff recommended it be underfunded or if staff recommended full funding and the council decided to underfund it. The fact is, it's grossly underfunded. It's recommended tentatively for next year's budget to be underfunded. And they're playing games with the new city hall by not putting the city hall on the list of facilities that would generate revenues to that, which violates the whole idea of the fund. No details. Street maintenance, same thing. If you don't maintain the streets, they go downhill and they get a whole lot more expensive when they fall apart. And the park building facilities is another. This is a situation where when you don't do this, you have a hidden deficit. It's exactly like having a bond outstanding. It's got to be paid. But unlike a bond, the public doesn't see it. It's hidden away. And that deficit grows and grows, and it gets to be, we're talking tens of millions here, pretty quickly. Nobody knows about it except us wonks. It really, really needs to be addressed. In some cases, like I said, the streets, don't do it, it multiplies. It gets worse faster. I came late, I apologize. Am I supposed to ask a question? What is the council going to do about this? Or are you just taking concerns?
No, I agree with you. I'm taking concerns. You're not going to hear any arguments from me on that, Bob.
It'll probably be another $1.5 million or so. It's probably not going to be in the city manager's budget. That's the problem. Where do you find $1.5 million when you've already laid off whatever 10% of your staff?
You know the city finances better than that. You know where the money goes. But we're not going to get into that now because that's a topic for another day. Jeff is grinning. Yeah, Ken.
I don't go to council meetings. I do watch almost every one of them on TV. And I'm just wondering how many other people in Olympia get the same impressions that I do. I've been hearing a lot lately about compassion, particularly in regard to the street people. And I'm just wondering how many people feel like I do. Where's the compassion for the people that pay the taxes? These people are taking, they're not giving anything. And there's been a couple of instances, things that have happened, where 100 shows up. And they talk and they talk and they talk. Most of them say the same thing. It's interesting to watch the reaction of the council. And I get the impression there's an awful lot of compassion for these people who give nothing. And not so much talk about accountability. I know I'm not talking about passing ordinances or more laws or anything. We've gone through that with the parking meters and that kind of thing, the busking and all that. I'm not talking about their rights, but it seems to me that morally they should be held accountable for their actions. And I get kind of tired of hearing about the police accountability, cop watch. I'm getting tired of hearing that. And it's just a feeling that I get that the council is leaning a little bit too much in favor of the people that aren't contributing and not enough to the people that are. Maybe a personal opinion, but I have a feeling that there are others out there that feel the same way I do, who don't want to come down there and get in front of a microphone and express their opinions. Maybe they don't even write emails, but they're still feeling it. Just a comment.
I heard that a lot, actually.
Hmm?
I heard that a lot. That
I know
same-
there's
that same-
these people, they're homeless people, unfortunately, they need help. And there are places that are trying to help them. I know that. But people laying around on sidewalks, not doing anything all day, I just get tired of it.
There are different populations that are going on. Most homeless, you never even know who they are, and you'll never see them. They're pretty quiet, they're tucked away, and unless you've gone walking, you might not even know they're there. So they don't want to draw attention. Now, there are certain populations that are drawing a lot of attention that, quite frankly, aren't homeless at all. And one of the big thoroughfares being Fourth, and this is something that when we talk about sidewalk ordinances, and sometimes there's this pushback saying this ordinance is against the homeless, when in fact, actually, this ordinance is in how to deal with bars. I don't consider it a homeless issue at all.
No, I
I
don't.
consider it how do you deal with bar spillage, because that's what's going on. And maybe that's part of it is keeping these populations distinct from one another, and not, because they really are apples and oranges, but I think quite often they're so intermixed. And the people that I hear complaining aren't the homeless. They're not the ones who ever come to me to complain. It's sometimes people who do want to party in the bars and can't get out there, and then are maybe scooted down so they're not blocking the sidewalk. Now but that's a totally different population. Those are late teens and 20s. That's who I'm hearing from. So
I have a feeling if our weather was better, we'd have even more of them.
So that's one of the reasons why we're trying to work with bars. There's a meeting next week. I think it's on Tuesday, so we're going to meet with a lot of the bars and tavern owners and some of the restaurant owners, especially the ones on Fourth, and try to coordinate how they can operate their businesses and how we can still maintain our streets. So they're going to be discussing some best management practices, and I'm hoping that will help some of the problems. But part of it is that you've got kids who really don't have anywhere to hang out, and that's where they go. They can't get into the clubs. They might not be old enough, or they don't have the money to, but they want to be social. So I live close to downtown. I walk downtown a lot, and that's what I consistently see. Now, we do have some drug and some alcohol problem, but that's not necessarily a homeless issue either. So there are a lot of different problems, and I think we have to hit them distinctly, and we're trying to. So, but you're right as far as is the council, I think, articulating that very clearly and saying, no, this is not against homeless. This is to deal with X, Y, and Z problems.
There was a letter in the Olympian about 2 months ago, I think it was, that articulated what I was saying. He was saying, the more we encourage them, the more they'll push. If you set out the welcome mat, they'll answer it.
What about alcohol impact areas? Is that something that has been considered?
Well, we should try that voluntary and see how it works with that. If it does, we'll never have to go to the Liquor Control Board. But we could have good neighbor agreements with all of the bars. We could set out some parameters. We could go to the convenience stores and ask them, will you not sell certain products? And if they do that voluntarily and the problem fades back, then wonderful. And if it doesn't, because there's lack of agreement or there's lack of compliance or for whatever reason we can't get the chronic public inebriation down, then yeah, we can go to the Liquor Control Board, but it's best if we try our best to do it through voluntary means. And I think there's some support there. Not necessarily going to be from all business owners, but you know, I met with staff a couple of weeks ago and talked to them about this. And there are 3 avenues we can take. One is through the alcohol impact area, whether it's voluntary or mandatory. And that would be preventing certain products from being sold, or maybe restricting store hours, or maybe restricting the types of products. And we could also have other agreements, like if you're a cashier or a clerk. If you work at a grocery store or convenience store, you don't have to have mandatory alcohol training where you're being taught this is how you recognize if someone's drunk or not. But they could say, well, we want your clerks to have this kind of training so they can recognize it, so they're not selling to people who are already drunk and exacerbating the problem. So that's one aspect we can do. Another aspect is we can try to deny new applications, new businesses as they come in. If you know an area is already a problem area, and we do have some of those, and someone comes in and wants to put in another bar, that's where the city needs to start objecting and saying, you know what, Liquor Control Board, we've had enough. Or we can change our own ordinances. That's another possibility. A third one is that if you know you've got a problem business and they come in for their liquor license renewal, then object. Say, Liquor Control Board, look, you know, you gotta stop this license. They're causing problems. That's a little difficult to do, but we do have some avenues for that one. And so staff are aware of that. They're getting on the ball.
Related to that, the tying back to the comp plan, basically what Rob said, basically we have a comp plan, I worked on it, that basically doesn't have a connection with the zoning ordinances, okay? And a lot of planning staff and stuff over the city like that. Problem is that it always creates perpetual problems. We have some way to connect the comp plan, the goals, the policies, and some sort of measure that's held in common with the zoning ordinances and other city ordinances. Then you can have some level of accountability. And this is our biggest problem. We spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with things where we vision it one way, and then all of a sudden staff gives approval, effectively allowing certain things to occur, and then they almost take on, they're basically, it's like the staff have approved it when it really hasn't gone through a complete process. There are examples I don't need to mention in front of this group and you, but certainly there are many examples where they've approved an exterior permit for a large building that was contrary to the parks plan for that particular area, that was contrary to a long-term vision for that area. And then that was used as the basis to talk about, the basis to basically get a hearing examiner to rule in favor of a particular position. I'm not going to argue that here. What I'm saying is if we had comp plan that had goal policy, as I advocated in the 80s and 90s, okay, and also some sort of performance measure that was then held in common with the zoning ordinance, then we could start to get a little better accountability, a little better connection between the vision, what actually happens. That's the source of so many of the community conflicts that have arisen, that the vision we've had doesn't get translated into the actual permitting process as reflected in the ordinances, and they often get modified. There appears to be a relationship between some staff and developers to the detriment of the community vision.
Yeah, you have development planning and development staff is paid by the city, and they seem to work, you know, on behalf of their client, developer, or builder, and, you know, to achieve developer goals, and that's consistent with the kind of a customer service view of your planning staff. I like to see planning staff work for the city, and that the city, through the council, establish policy and ordinances and regulations so that staff enforces and, you know, those regulations in that code instead of, you know, trying to accommodate, you know, the developer, you know, to, you know, wreak out the maximum profit. I mean, you can give good customer service, but you have to, you know, they work for the city, they don't work for the developers. And what I've seen is, right now, the planning and development staff kind of works for, you know, their client, and the client is not the city. So, Jeff's right, unless you have some specificity, who are they working for? If they're working for the developers, then why are you paying them?
Is that it?
Oh, we're just getting started.
All right.
Topics are
Did
just
you bring
getting
your
hot
sleeping
on the
bag?
spot now.
Karen, I got a question. What is Jane Kirkmo's staff telling you about the city finances? I mean, we're looking at the state shortfall, and we know that they've underestimated what the revenue shortfall is going to be. Okay, we know that. We'll find out more in November. We understand there are several local governments here that are playing games, much like what Bob alluded to in terms of not fully doing the maintenance on property and buildings, etc. And so all of those little games, you can do them so long, and then finally something hits the fan. So what is the staff telling you about the next 2012? There are lots of things in the air, lots of uncertainty.
You know, we haven't gotten any of the numbers
No,
yet, which is a problem.
Any interest in having
Yeah.
a citizen committee to help you with your budgeting?
Oh, I have a great deal of interest in that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And that's something I was thinking about. That's gonna be a whole kettle of worms.
That's okay.
So you know that, and that's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
be, that's gonna be hard getting through the council. I certainly would support it. And in fact, I've tried to set up my own little ad hoc as far as my people I've given information to and said, hey, could you go through this? And they're not liking what they're seeing. But is there the will to do anything about it? And that's the question, Jeff. So there's another disconnect. I don't think there is the will, to be honest with you. But it doesn't necessarily mean the information shouldn't be there or there shouldn't be a committee there. But, you know, Roger said one of the reasons why sometimes, you know, I make my colleagues angry is because I bring up issues they don't want to hear. And I can't do that anymore. I can't, you know, I'm one person of 7. And if you guys want these things to change, you're going to have to tell the other 6. Because I can't, you know, I love getting this input, I love having these meetings and learning, but as far as putting pressure, that has to come from you. I can't do that for you.
Question. Do you think there's some changes with regard to the governance structure that would help the city operate in a more representative manner, such as having council people elected by district within the city, such as basically creating situations where you have citizens providing input in addition to staff, so you get a little different perspective. They can both present, but basically have them presented. Would those be the types of things that could be, I mean, unless a citizen does an initiative, and we're limited in what we can do with initiatives, the types of changes that need to take place in terms of governance, are there things that you can think of that would help us improve the governance structure?
I would like to see districts, to be honest with you. It's really hard covering the entire city. And that's something I actually spoke about at the last retreat we had. could we institute an informal one where, you know, just amongst ourselves, we divvy up the city and say, okay, this person will take care of these few neighborhoods over here, this person takes care of that, because otherwise people aren't going to get represented. And whether we do that formally or informally, I don't really care. I just would like to see it done. And if it takes a formal structure, then, you know, then I'm fine with that as well, but it comes down to, I guess, what the community would like to see. If you want to have greater consistency, greater alignment, and that's what I'm hearing time and time again, whether it's the comp plan, the SFP, the budget, what people want compared to, you know, going down to what actually happens at the ground, then you're going to have more informed council members, people who have the time to do it, because right now they don't. And you're right, the accountability, the only accountability you have is who you elect, but if we're not empowered, it doesn't matter. So should there be a change in government? I think so. Because from what I'm seeing on the inside, it's just not, it's not getting it done. And, but that's just my opinion. So.
In terms of finances, was anything brought up yesterday, the finance committee, in terms of, you know, what's going on with the budget?
Actually, Brenda and I were both sick yesterday. So, yeah, don't get too close to me by this.
I shouldn't feel bad about missing that meeting.
No,
I had another meeting. I really wanted to be there, but.
No, there's this horrible cold going around. It's like between the fever and the sore throat. It's just sad.
Now you've scared off.
Thanks, Karen.
20%, you know, 30% of the meeting here.
One other suggestion, and that is, I'd suggest the council look at salaries. I have an impression that Olympia salaries are high, and I am wondering if we've lost 10% of our staff, have our top management people taking 10% cuts in pay, things like that.
Yeah,
How do we
well,
compare with state
that's
salaries?
one of those things I brought up that made them angry. So, again, you need to go to the full council and say that, because I'm already there, Bob. I've already looked through the numbers. And you're right, and that's one of the concerns that I have. One of the reasons why I voted against 2 union contracts was for that very reason. Saying, look, you know, I'd rather people make a little bit less and everyone stay employed. But that philosophy is not always shared, and that's unfortunate, because now people are getting sent home, and it's going to be more and more. And it's not just the salaries; it's the total compensation cost. You know, there's 100% medical coverage, which is great, but as a state employee, I myself get 85%, and you know, and that's okay. And as a matter of fact, I had to pick up 3% more this year than I had years previous. But again, if it's keeping people employed. So yeah, it is high. There's no doubt about it, between the overtime and the benefits and the salaries, as well as some of the overtime language. That's another thing as far as compensation. But in time management and bonuses, there are a lot of concerns throughout all of these. Oh, I've looked into them.
Bonuses?
Well, yeah. There are bonus problems as well.
Union employees are not getting bonus.
Oh, yeah, they are. And, they are.
Which ones?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later when Walt's not filming. Sorry, Walt. But.
Well, it's public record, so you can call the city manager's office and find
Well,
who's got
and that's the
bonus.
thing, and I actually, one of the things I did is, I've got the 2010, all the total compensation costs for every single city employee. And I've looked through it. And, you know, for example, some of the medical on the city side is up to $16,000 for several people per person. And that is huge. It's great benefit, but how many people are going to have to go unemployed for it? And so yeah, there is a concern.
So Karen, why can't we be proactive? We know that we're going to have revenue shortfalls at all levels, including okay, why can't we educate the citizenry and ask them to participate in the process when we take a good hard look at what are the basic government services we need? As we make cuts, let's let not unions drive where the cuts occur, okay? But let's let the public through some informational process, create some website applications, have them help you to establish the priorities in terms of budgeting priorities, but also take a look at the structure and say, what are the priority services? There are too many unfunded mandates that come down from the state for you.
Well, I'm gonna, we had those public meetings, we had two, and I
Yes.
pushed for them, and quite frankly, they were worthless, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't get any information that I needed. And it's now at the point where I plan on writing my own survey. And I've got the survey that Jane drafted up, and actually there's a lot of good base information in their base questions, but it's to flesh out what the priorities are. But again, it all comes down to, you can have all the information in the world, it's like leading a horse to water, you can't make it drink. So, I've been mining this information, I'm continuing to mine it, but it's, what are you gonna do with it?
Does the voter know? Are they getting this data translated into information that they can hear about? That's the question. I think a lot of times the voters haven't a clue of what's going on at the state level or the county or the local level.
No, they don't. And that's part of it. It's part of getting that information out there and making it public record. And just to let you know, I actually have made photocopies of all of those total compensation costs, and I spent hours myself, just striking out some of the numbers to, for public records. There were some exemptions, like for example, I had to strike out like eye, dental, and medical, because that's going to be protected.
Sure.
So if you can imagine going through 700 sheets and doing that, and then making photocopies of it, that's what I have done. In the meantime, it would still be great to have that in a nice little Excel spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
All of that information so we can see, and break it down by policies. For example, if you're a police officer, depending upon your level of education, if you've got, an associate's, you get, I think it's 3%. If you've got a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, it's 6%. And if you're in one particular unit, if you've got a master's degree, you recently got 8% now. There was an increase, and that was one of the union contracts I voted against. Well, how much does that cost? So if we were to bump up someone 2%, but it's just this one union, what happens when you apply it to all of the others? Because they're going to ask for it too. Now, how much are you looking at? Because that's one of the creeping costs. You go into a union negotiation, and and they're saying, well, but this other union has it, so to be fair, give it to this one. Well, what was that first one? Well, it's just this one person that's going to get it. So there's that isn't there, this continuity of thought. We're not taking the time to ask the tough questions. What is it really going to cost in the long run?
We meaning the city council.
We being the city council, and that's
Who is
where
responsible for managing the city manager? Who is responsible for all of the things we've been discussing?
Yeah. So there's a frustration level that on my end certainly, and I can see it on yours, but how to fix that. Now, either we could come up with a citizen advisory committee, but then there's going to be some pushback, just to let you know, because these are union negotiations, they're supposed to be in confidence. But at some point, we need to have some kind of information. When I asked how much does this cost if we were to apply this citywide, or how much are we spending for just this type of bonus? And I was told, I can't get that, we can't have that information because our computer program isn't set up for it. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the fact is, this is a policy decision, and I'm not being given the information I need.
And the wrong guy running the computer.
Well, the wrong guy running the computer, but that's why.
You know how many employees you have. You do the pro formas on the different proposals.
But
not rocket science.
But that's why I'm having to come up with my own database for that very reason, and put it in a format that I can understand, because it's not accessible.
So would having staff at the city council help to do a better job of managing the city manager?
That'd be helpful for you, that's for sure.
It's not just about managing the city manager, it's also about the council managing itself.
That's what I mean.
Because here's the thing, this is what happens, you've got people who get into office, and there's no handbook that says this is what it means to be an elected official. People don't know what it means to be an elected official. They don't know what their responsibilities are. They don't know what staffs are. They don't know the dividing line. So you have some people who like to be managers, but when you're in an elected role, you're no longer a manager. You can do oversight, you should do oversight, as what you're saying, making sure there's accountability. And that right there has been absent. We don't do oversight. There is no feedback measure. There is no every 1 or 2 years, we're gonna hire an outside person to come and do an audit. And not just to say if all the cents line up, but to say, you know, is your money being spent properly, given your set of goals? Are they being achieved? We don't have that.
I'm guessing one of the reasons you ran for council when you did was the recognition that the council that you were running to be a part of, but that council was not asking for much accountability from staff. Basically, we're allowing staff to kind of run the shop. And the decisions that were being made weren't good for the community. I'm guessing that's why you and the other people that ran at that time ran.
Yeah, but nothing's changed, Rob.
Oh, I know, because we haven't cleaned the whole house yet.
It doesn't matter, it's still not gonna change.
Yeah, we'll work on it.
See, that's the thing, some of the underlying structure has to change, the capabilities have to
But
change.
in
It's
order to
like-
do that, you've got to have more than 4 votes, you've got to have 5 or 6, because it's a difficult thing to do, as you're saying. And if you have enough votes, it makes it a lot easier to do that, rather than, you know, just, are we going to have 3 or 4 votes on our side this time? You know, if you've got a good solid 5 or 6, then it's easier to make changes, as simple as hiring a new manager, as simple as complicated as changing the form of the city government. But you can't do that with a 4-3.
Well, I don't think you can, well, if you wanna change the city government, you're gonna have to go to a public vote, but, and that's a different
But
story.
you can't get there with a 4-3 because it's too controversial. If you've got a 5-2 or a 6-1.
You know, I think you can do it by petition, actually.
Well,
That can be done by public petition, but the underlying structural problem is still there. It's just that, do you have a clearly defined role? Do you know what your role is? And is everyone respectful?